Good evening and welcome to the studio this evening. Windows all over the place tonight. Sorry, I'm off, just sat to one side and drinking my tea. Before it goes much colder, I was busy playing with some stuff and almost completely forgot about the stream until I was reminded that I'm supposed to be streaming. So, time for the white gloves. Should gradually get in black on the tips at least. Fear Reaper, good evening. Welcome to tonight. To tonight. Hey, I'm a TV program now. Welcome to the studio this evening tonight. Ah dear. And how are you today? I'm just going to finish my tea off, if you don't mind me doing that whilst before I start. Otherwise, I'll not actually get as far as drinking it, and then I'll be wishing that I had. Partes is here. Good evening. Welcome to the studio this evening. Good stuff. Tea, coffee, any drink. Actually, I think that's just reminding me. And well, I was about to say I don't know quite why. Oh, I've left my email on. But I did, because I looked at them. I need to change my glasses. These, as opposed to these, are just slightly better for a better prescription for doing this. And at least one thing, if I do it while I'm wearing gloves, I can't get finger marks on the glasses. Right. Yeah, they are supposed to be better. Coming along very nicely. It is indeed. Thank you very much. Parties is here. The only problem with switching these glasses is I can't see that chat in that I'm pointing there. Here I am pointing at stuff that you can't see. Well, I suppose you might, but I've got chat on two windows. I can't see it on the one in front of me too well, but I can see it on the one on the right of me, which is why it's on the right of me. Anyway, not that you're particularly bothered by that, but that's when you get old, you see, you need glasses. So now it's at the moment it's a matter of just filling in breaks. Again, I'm trying to use sort of different textures to do this with if I can. As I mentioned last night, try not to make every bit look the same. It might look that come out that way in the end when we start trying to apply what I describe as a texture to them, lighten or darken them and things like that. Then they may start to look the same sort of style, but if that's how it turns out, that's how it turns out. Okay, you made a new render. Well, that's quick for a start. You must have worked out how to make it quick. Okay. Do I get to see it? Okay, let's have a look. Okay. It is. I guess what I should have done is somehow, well, I don't know OBS that well, otherwise I'd put that on stream for people to see, but thank you very much. It is. They're both different. They both work quite well, they just work in different ways at different times. You know, it's the sort of thing where you might use, I might use one for example as the sign on, and the not quite as a transition because unfortunately OBS doesn't support transitions, but you know, kick that in as the final plate before go live, and then the other one as a mid plate before the end one. So, but yeah, it's good. I like that. As you say, it looks different. I'm going to play it again. It looks different because it's still, but it could. I was going to say, potentially it could have done with a little bit of more. It stops. How many? Does it stop very many frames? I suppose it's not too difficult with a video editor just to extend the just to repeat the end frame or two. I was going to say it stops really quick after it. You only just get to notice that it's finished when it stops. But I'm guessing a video player probably will just keep the end plate, or maybe the OBS one won't. I don't know, but that's just a video editing thing. Is that? That's not a render problem. Or it can be solved with a video editing. The other one last night, I think, lasted once it had popped at the end. It sort of sat there for a second or so. Just seemed to be a bit longer, but yeah, no, it's no problem. As I say, with what I do if I wanted to extend something like that is I wouldn't render it. What I do is take a video editing package and just take the last frame and or the last full frame depending on how you've rendered it, and just stretch the frame, which effectively will just replay the last frame. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's the difference. That just softens the output for your Reaper in doing that. When you zoom out, then that just softens you've seen the pop. It softens. It's not an abrupt finish. But yeah, it's not a problem. Not a problem at all. It's different, as I say. There's slightly different uses for them as well. They yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, parties is here. I mean, with something like OBS, you can even cheat potentially, because it depends on what OBS does. But you could, for example, snapshot the last frame as a pure image, and in OBS you can put that up, put the video of the top of it, and make it a scene, so both come together. The video plays and then the video will disappear, leaving the last frame, or leaving the image that's underneath. And providing you set them both identically, you may not see the difference. Okay. You can see, well, yeah. I was going to say I was studying that then because I'd seen the reflections. I've just got it as a on the YouTube on the page. Once I blew it up, I was looking for something else. I thought, am I missing something? No, yeah, you can see the reflections there, and the reflections differ according to the grain of the wood as well. So they appear to do, shall I say? So no, it's because there's a bit in the middle where the wood grain is a little bit darker, and the reflections aren't quite just that bit, which is what I'd expect to see as a reflection off a shiny surface with a wood grain underneath. So it looks good. I'd be more likely to use that one, for example, as the intro. Oh, I don't know. Not sure I'd reverse it because often a reversed video doesn't look the same as you might think it does. Although it's fun to see sometimes, and it builds. Reverse videos don't always look as good as something going in reverse, if that makes sense. I was just thinking of the two. I'd probably use two of the two differently. I was just trying to think which I'd use as an intro and which I'd use as an outro. Because my first thought was the static one would make a good intro, but in actual fact, I am thinking now that the pan and zoom, which you did first, would sort of make more of an intro unit because it's a little bit dramatic, or it's more dramatic, if you see what I mean, in that you don't see the whole thing, so you're led along it, you have to read it as you're going, and then you zoom out, and it's a bit more dramatic for a start sequence, whereas the other one is kind of, especially if you hold the end plate with the name on, is kind of more suited for an end static frame. Interesting, something to play with. Something to play. Another thing to play with. Dear. I did send you a message last night on Twitch, by the way, Fear Reaper, about it. And thank you for having and doing another one. I mean, that's amazing. Is it? Did it? No, I was about to say, did it render quicker because you weren't doing the additional camera movements on it? Because the other one took you about 3 nights to do the render on, and this one you seem to. I'm assuming you started last night, so you got through the render really quickly on that. Right. Okay. Intellectually, I'll say, I didn't think it would, because a frame's a frame. It's the frame contents which would do that, but I never know. There might be, useful tricks that the camera that the render program plays when it's static. For example, it knows it's already rendered half the frame. The background, for example, and it only needs to re-render the I'll say the centre section, the bit that it's actually concentrating on at the time. So it might have been able to do some fancy tricks, whereas when you're panning a camera, everything's changing. So okay. Dear. Twitch. It is twitching. Where would I like to receive them? Would you expand that question? Whichever way is convenient to you. I mean, you've done an awful lot of work. I mean, if you're talking about file formats, or you're talking about how to send them, and if they're mail, upload site, Dropbox, Google Drive. If they're small enough, you can quite happily send them by email via Reaper. If that's not a problem to you, you can send them to enquiries@zaragonart.com. Otherwise, I don't particularly have an upload site available. At least not yet. And thank you again. Thank you. If you need, I'll put that in an email afterwards. If you didn't catch the email address. Which, by the way, if anybody's interested in any of the art stuff, you can send me a Twitch message or use the same email address. And hopefully I'll get a website up shortly where I can put some of these art pieces that I've been doing, so you'll be able to see them when I'm not actually broadcasting or anything like that. Okay. Come back to that bit later. Incidentally, if anybody's interested in seeing me do some more jewellery, I am hoping this weekend, because it'll be out of sequence, but I am hoping this weekend to have some time to do a stream in the afternoon one day and do some jewellery, because I've got some new, I've been spending again, I've got some new rings I want to try out some stuff with. I've got some rubber rings, so I should be able to make a bracelet with no clasp, so it'll be just stretchy, which could be interesting. And I've also got some titanium anodized rings which I want to have a play with as well, just see what they're like. Parties, well, what do I do when I'm not broadcasting? Everyday stuff when I'm not broadcasting and when I'm not working. Not a lot, because there's kind of, I make tea and during the week I generally watch at least one other stream after I finish Matt Pendleton. Not tonight though, I don't stream on a Wednesdays anymore now. But that's about during the week. That's about all I have time for. It's surprising just how it's kind of surprising just how much time streaming takes up. I mean, I only generally stream for about 2 hours a night, but for some reason it just seems to be sort of come home from work, have tea, stream, relax for a little bit, then go to bed. Kind of keep trying to get a website, zarragonart.com, up and running. What's my job? Answer that in a second. I suppose the easiest way to answer that for you, Reaper, is to actually type it. No, enquiries, not inquiries. Not a bad, that's close, part. It's probably my, I don't know, to be honest, whether it's not the way I spelt it, but I don't know which is right and which is wrong, to be honest. It's one of those words that I'm sure there is a difference between inquire and enquire, but I don't actually know what it is. What's my job? I work for a telecommunications company, and I deal with, how do I put this, data. I play with data. At the moment, looking for trends in things. So trying to work out how to look at information to be able to get the information that I'm looking at, to get trend information out of it, and use that as part of the business process that the data is coming from. So it's I consider it creative, because you're looking at information, you're drawing graphs, manipulating the information, and looking for right ways of graphing the data so that it actually tells you something. Because sometimes something as simple as drawing a graph in a different way can tell you stuff that you didn't realise. Just as a simple example, sometimes if you draw a graph with a linear frequency, with a linear scale, you might get, a curve. Now, if you're used to that sort of thing, you can recognise it. But if you change to using a logarithmic scale, it becomes straight, for example, and then that's a more useful representation. But then you get into what they call curve fitting, so you can predict, and then you're into polynomial expressions and all sorts of stuff. Great Hoser. No, unfortunately we don't monitor anything at all. It's not something that's done. Not yet, I haven't, but I'm sure it will be. Unfortunately, I don't actually have anywhere otherwise to put it. For you to put it for your Reaper, unless you have somewhere I can download it from. If it does turn out to be a problem, I'm guessing it's fairly big, so it's going to take a little while for it to arrive, I think. But thank you. That's fantastic of you. Anyway, Great Hoser, good evening and welcome to the studio. The amount of data that passes through work, you just couldn't monitor even if you wanted to. No, that's not bad for you, Reaper. Don't think I've got a limitation on that. We'll find out shortly, I guess, if it bounces. Anyway, back to this. So just lightly filling in blocks with slightly different patterns, and then once we've got them all the ones I want to do with some sort of fill in them, we can then we'll then look at either increasing the brightness, decreasing the brightness, changing the patterns in them and things like that. What's my favourite food? Edible stuff. No, I don't fantastically have a favourite food as such. I have things that I like. I mean, I like pizzas. I prefer something like a pepperoni pizza. Now I have mail. Thank you. I'm guessing they're both of them in there with the use of the plural Fear Reaper. Thank you very much. Now I'll just have to remember. Oh, I can always throw it on the. I was about to say now I'll have to remember if I've got a bar extractor, but otherwise I'll throw it on a Unix box. So things like a pepperoni pizza, pepperoni pizza I quite like. So I generally have a pizza with lots of pepperoni on it, but I like capers and olives on it as well. I like Indian spice. I don't Indian food, shall we say, or the Englishified Indian food. But I don't particularly go for really hot stuff. So I like the spicy but cooler dishes. So I don't go for vindaloos or anything like that. To be honest, I don't see the point, because for me that would be tasteless. It'd just be too hot. But I tend to like most spicy things. I mean, one of the things that I have almost every day is like chili peppers. I say like chili peppers because I don't know whether they're chilies or what they are, but the peppers that are hot, green. I tend to have sort of 2 or 3 of those every day with my lunch, just because I like the spiciness of them. Again, they're not really hot. They're hot enough to be spicy, but I like the taste. So there you go. Favourite foods. Chili con carne. Unfortunately, I was going to say, unfortunately, if you try and buy like shop-bought chili con carne, it tends to be very watery, and I prefer so either making it or getting it from somewhere that actually knows how to make it. Lasagna. I'm not fantastically. There's too much pasta in it for me. And I know lasagna's layered pastas, so, but if lasagna without quite as much pasta in it is nice, because I like the the mincemeat and stuff there as well. So yeah, what other sorts of things? I'm kind of odd though, because I'm kind of odd, and I gather you've probably worked that out by now. But things like my wife, for example, if you're on about, let's talk about snacks. I can quite happily eat a packet of crisps, or I guess in America you call them potato chips. Packet of crisps, something like that. But equally, I would be quite happy to just have raw cauliflower or raw peas. I quite often will eat those, especially garden peas, with or without the pods. I'll take the pods and open them and eat the peas. I'll sometimes even eat the pods. I kind of like the raw vegetables like that. Almost as a preference to even having things like chocolate. I don't actually eat a lot of chocolate, except when I get it, then I eat a lot of chocolate. I can go through a whole bar quite easily, but I kind of prefer to have vegetables. Yeah, garden peas, raw ones though. Oh, mind you, I like them cooked as well, but raw peas. Quite like, and in snack wise, I guess the other one I like is popcorn, freshly made popcorn with salt. So I guess I probably have a bit too much salt when I do that, but yeah. I've never eaten raw beans. But those I quite like cooked as well. But they, if you call them kidney beans, but not the beans that are in the case, so to speak. The one we call them broad beans. They're out, like you take peas out of the pod, you can get the beans out of the pod that they're in, and I like those as well. I quite often make, as we had last night, I'll take raw things like a raw onion, raw mushroom, all raw, uncooked stuff. So mushrooms, onions, cauliflower, broccoli, tomatoes, cabbage, all chopped up in a big bowl with a salad dressing, which will probably be just something like mint and white wine vinegar and olive oil as a dress. I mix it all up as a dressing, poured over the top, the whole lot tossed, and it's a vegetable salad. And generally speaking, when I have that, I've got a dinner plate piled high, and I'll go through that, and I'll be stuffed at the end of it, but you don't have that many calories. It's quite nice in that way. In fact, I think probably the most calories are actually in the dressing than anything else. But it's lovely and colourful, and there's a lot of crunch in it if you like crunchy stuff. So not quite cooking on the stream. Yeah, I don't intend to do any of that, but I actually have seen some creative streamers doing that, cooking actually on stream. I never watched them though to see whether they were actually doing it like a cookery lesson or whether they were just streaming themselves cooking. I've gone quiet, haven't I? Kind of conversation went in an odd sort of direction. And I missed your comment part. Yeah, about the shopbot stuff. Yeah, definitely. It's odd. Some shopbot stuff, and I'm not just talking about chili con carne there, but I mentioned I like pizzas, pepperoni pizzas, because of the spicy stuff. And I'm just thinking then there are only certain shops or certain pizzas that I buy. Which I've tried quite a few, and there's some which are really, and some which I wouldn't have again if you paid me. And there are others which are absolutely lovely, and sometimes it's not the expensive ones either. And it's just odd, isn't it? How the same, but is ostensively, well, whatever. What should be the same thing are completely different from either from different shops or different ranges. But anyway, you guys have come to see art, not no cookery. Mind you, having said which, cookery can be an art form. Actually, what just crossed my mind there is cookery is an art form. Not so much cookery, but cake decoration with airbrushing. That's quite an interesting art, and one I kind of looked at and thought that might be an interesting one. I mean, I don't make cakes, so I'm not quite sure how I do it without going out and buying iced cakes, or maybe just getting a big slab of icing and decorating the icing. But you can get, in quotes, edible inks. It's, you know, like the stuff they put into icing, the liquid. I hesitate to say dyes, but you hopefully you know. But you get fluid. Colour fluid that you can use to colour icing with, food colouring, and you can actually spray that stuff and create art forms on cakes. Not tried it with orange juice, mind you. One thing you've got to be careful of sometimes is the cheaper orange juice has more sugar in it, which, because it's sweeter, it tends to taste nicer. But yeah, apple juice is one that I find is different. There's only about 2 brands of apple juice I actually like, because a lot of them use. I tend to describe the apple juice as soft, but it kind of uses like okay, with an apple. I like an apple that's really hard. So if you know your apple brands, something like a Granny Smith's, a lot of people seem to think they don't have much flavour, but I do. So I could say it's a better palate, I don't know. But anyway, but that sort of orange juice, which is a lot sharper and clean tasting, if that makes sense. A lot of the apple juices are of the sort of the more common apples, and things like Cox's apples, which I find to be really soft, well, softish, and I don't like the texture of. So I can, well, in orange juice as well, I tend to prefer the smooth orange juice than the ones with the bits in. But sometimes you'll get it and it'll be really bitter, and other times, or other ones, it'll be, as you say, just a nice flavour. I'm talking again. I like the talking bit. I don't like the not doing art bit. So I don't want you to stop talking to me so that I get on with doing this, because I do actually enjoy the talking as well. little crosses on that one. So just now I've got quite a few of the bricks around there sort of filled in with something. I'm half wondering whether it's looking a bit busy, but or whether I should just kind of. Nah, I have been toying with the idea of only doing a few, you know, like at this end here, sort of stopping with those, and then sort of just doing a grey background. But I think I prefer the idea of actually putting them all in. Hate fizzy drinks, they usually have juices and cordials. Hate the taste of. Now I can understand that. Different waters though taste differently. I know. I say here in the UK because I can't actually remember where you're from. Parties is here, but I live in Yorkshire. I like the taste of water, certainly in the area of Yorkshire where I am. If I go down to London, I really don't like the taste. I can't remember if it's softer or harder down there, but it's a completely different taste to the water, and I don't really drink it. I have and do, so to speak, because sometimes that's sensible, shall we say. But I can understand that. And my wife, for example, she hates tap water. She'll drink bottled water, but not tap water. So I can quite easily understand that. Fizzy drinks. I don't always go for fizzy drinks. I sometimes they give me indigestion if I drink a lot of them. But I think I don't know. They're nice occasionally. I like if they're cold and you drink it a little bit fast, shall we say, you get that bite at the back of your throat, which is quite nice sometimes. But usually what I actually drink is just fizzy water, plain fizzy water. In fact, the cheapest that you can get in the supermarket usually. I drink a lot of that, a lot being a relative term, maybe a glass every other day, something like that. But I learned that with the migraines and headaches. If I have dehydration, fizzy water gets into your system faster than plain water to sort of rehydrate you a little bit, and that can help with headaches that are caused by dehydration. So I learned that quite a while ago. So that I usually have sort of fizzy water in the fridge, and if I need to, then if I want something a bit different, I'll just pour, like you mentioned there, a fruit juice or a cordial in with water, and so I can make sort of fizzy orange juice, or orange squash, or something like that with it. So I know it's not the stuff that they make fizzy orange with, because that's made with seltzer water, but just straight carbonated water is I quite like. The new model is getting there. Okay, is this a new? You're not doing another one with my name on it, are you, Via Reaper? What are you doing this time? You have flavoured water with no sugar in. Yeah, and of course it's important that you have that water with going to the gym as well. So, but flavoured water. There are some really nice flavoured waters as well. It's an odd one when you think. You kind of think it's like watered down fruit juice. It kind of sounds like it wouldn't be very nice, but some of them are really nice. There's I think it's an Evian one, which it's pink, and I can't for the life of remember what's in it, whether it's peach or something like that, which is really nice. No, you won't, Fear Reaper. I'm trying to think back as to what I said that you won't. I think okay, it's a whole way in the mental institution. So it is about me then. Oh dear. I've got a weird sense of humour sometimes. Perhaps I belong in one of those places from time to time. It's I don't often like playing games that incorporate things like that, except if the objective of the game is kind of like exploration. Mainly, I think because places like asylums are tended to be really big buildings with lots of corridors and passageways, and in games they always have secret passages and things like that. So and weird doors and things. So I kind of enjoy that sort of game, but I'm guessing now that one's probably going to have exactly that Fear Reaper, given that I've now put the idea in your head. I don't mind. Some flavour water, strange flavours. Yeah. Actually, some fizzy drinks have strange flavours. It's a long time ago now, but I was in Disney World, Disneyland, the one in Florida, in the Epcot. So we were there on holiday, and that year they had one of the drinks manufacturers. Well, one of the drinks manufacturers was like Coca-Cola or something like that, was sponsoring an exhibit. So it was you went through a really icy passageway, so like you were walking through an ice cave, until you then came to the tasting room, basically, where there was sort of little tiny cups, and you could taste the favourite nation drink, fizzy drink from all around the world, and you get things. If it's Coca-Cola, for example, there'd be a Coca-Cola for America or England, and then there was a real weird one from Japan, I think it was, and it was kind of like, well, you could tell the people that had tried it, because they were encouraging the people that hadn't to have a go at that one with things like, it's really nice, you ought to try this. It was an acquired taste, shall we say. Once you acquired the taste, it was quite nice, but it was you're going to try for realism, which is it is from an artistic perspective, Fear Reaper, which is what I'm coming at it from. I don't play many games with those, but from an artistic perspective, sometimes realism doesn't help. I can understand why you might want to do it. Sometimes, though, hinting at something rather than actually showing something can be a lot more dramatic or real, in quotes. You might expect in a place like that, for example, to have bad lighting. Well, they probably don't, or wouldn't have. But if you sort of put lots of shadows in there, it starts to look more menacing. And of course, that's not necessarily realism. Weird-looking shadows, because if you telegraph the fact it's an insane asylum, you can even put things in that look wrong, and people will take that as creeping them out because it doesn't look right. There's something about the scene that looks wrong. So you can do things like a shadow that goes the wrong way. There's a light and the shadow's pointing at the light, and something like that can weird people out. Yeah, there's gonna be shadows, but things like I don't know, a fuzzy edge on a door, something like that. It's something that just isn't truly realistic, but it can actually sort of just telegraph terror or something like that. I haven't seen it done, but the sort of idea that just struck me that might be quite fun to do is you do a render of like your corridor of insane asylum. You're going, it's spooky, it's shadowy, it's dark, the light's flickering. You take the camera down the corridor, you come to a door, you open the door, and then just suddenly shout boo. Something like that would be quite funny. As long as you build up the tension for a few seconds, however long you want to do the render, and then just suddenly, it's you open the door and there's it's a cake with a candle on it and it's a party, and you just go boo or something. I could quite imagine that being quite a one of those sort of things that make you jump but then immediately make you laugh. Okay. Yeah, I must do. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's as valid an art form, and it's a valid way of doing it. And yeah, dust particles. Yeah, in the lighting. One just an off the cuff sort of thing for you, Reaper. I don't know if there are. Are the rendering engines available for the wheelchair? Interesting idea. Are the rendering engines available for Unix? Because then you could get something like, I don't know, old laptops or for anybody, or any old sort of, almost any old machine in quotes, and just put Unix, Linux on it with a rendering engine, and then you could just let it go, so to speak. You're not bothered in quotes. You're not bothered how long it takes. You can leave it running, and you don't actually tie up your own computer with it. Because you don't necessarily also even have to run graphical engines on Linux, so you can use quite a lot of the computing power that's available for the rendering, which might actually make it more powerful than your PC effectively doing it, because it's not running the graphics at the same time. And lots of people seem to have sort of old machines as they've bought, they've upgraded, especially people that don't build their own, as they they upgrade machines by buying a new one. Then I know, for example, I've got my wife here now has had 3 laptops. She's on a third, so I've got at least, well, 1.5, because she's still using half of them. Just that here. I mean, the one of them, well, two of them now, the batteries are shot. They won't hold charge, but they'll run on mains. and I've kept them because at some point I probably will do something like run a home automation system on one of the laptops. It's, you know, running Linux, it's plenty powerful enough to do something like that. The point though, Fear Reaper, is that you don't necessarily need to run. You wouldn't necessarily be doing GPU rendering. You'd be doing CPU rendering, but you're doing it. You're doing it on a box that you're not using for other things, so you can just leave it running 24 hours a day. So if it takes 24 hours to do a render, it takes 24 hours. It's not your machine tied up for 24 hours. You can get on in setting up the next one. And that's true. Blender is. It'd be nice if you could run it without the GUI. If you can run it just on as a command line, then you can run it. You can run it without running the X environment, which is what provides the graphical user interface on Linux usually, and you'll save quite a bit of processing power then, which can go into the But it's having that second machine, or even if you can get them. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, because you use your laptop normally for school, don't you? But it was just an idea, because you can, even with Linux, there are, if you get a couple of them or three of them, if you get a few of these old ones, some of them will cluster, so you can spread spread the load and have fun, shall we say, in a completely different. You can build your own render farm. It might not be a really powerful one, but it's one that can be just kicked off and left. Sorry, the thought that came to mind is, I know they're not powerful enough, is things like Raspberry Pis, and the reason it came to mind is that actually I don't know if they would do GPU rendering, but anyway, on the Raspberry Pis, and in fact some other any Linux box, the thing that you can run, what was it called? There was an operating system which actually came before Windows, and it was the Digital Equipment Corporation, and the VAX. It's VAX VMS, which is a really nice operating system. It's not Linux, but it will run Linux on top of it, which is a bit odd. But the very nice thing about VAX VMS is that if you had 6 machines, those machines would cluster as a single machine, and they distribute the load amongst themselves automatically. Now, even Linux these days doesn't do that. It doesn't. When you cluster Linux machines, they're separate machines, and they don't really load share. But the VAX VMS was fantastic for that. So if you ever wanted to, in the past when they were available, if you ever wanted to sort of have a really powerful sort of cluster, you could do that. And yet you could take a top of the end range VAX and a little tiny VAX, tiny being power, not size, and you could cluster those two together, and they distribute the load according to their processing power, which was an amazing sort of thing back then, and it still doesn't really happen these days. And it's complete tangent really, because you're not going to run VMS, and you're not but it's I said it's just my memory. I used to work on VAX VMS and VAXes, and that as I understand it, VAX VMS was actually, and some of the people that worked on it were actually the people that introduced virtual memory use into Windows. That was back in Windows version 1 or 2. So they kind of nicked the idea and almost the code. I think it's the same people. The virtual memory system of VMS got introduced into Windows. history as well. History, cooking, art. We're having quite a varied thing tonight. I keep thinking occasionally I'll get another Raspberry Pi, so I've got at least two, and then or two that's free. And actually, because you can get VMS for nothing for personal use, so and actually just loading it, and the thought tickles me because a Raspberry Pi is more powerful than many of the old VAXs. Although that's not quite the right comparison to make. But yeah, a VAX, even something like 11750, which would fill an average room. You can get the same operating system on a Raspberry Pi. And it just tickles me a little bit. And in principle, the Raspberry Pi has more computing power than the older VAXs. They couldn't handle the same thing though, and I always find it a little bit annoying when people go things like the new computers are more powerful than the old mainframes, and it really depends on what you measure. You couldn't take a Raspberry Pi, for example, and run 1,000 terminals on it and have it work, and yet you could quite easily do that on a VAX. So, okay, Fear Reaper, no problem. Right, so okay, we've got I'm going to put a thin stone in there. I've got a few stones here. I'm going to put a few in here, I think. So what I want to do is kind of really telegraph the fact that I've got the edge of a building here. Which is going to be interesting when it comes to do the stones on this side of it, because they've got to be behind each other, so I've got to get that difference in distance between them. I'll answer your question in a minute. Pat is here. I just need to be right back. My wife, I think, has just called me because there's a cat fight going on. I shall be back shortly. Okay guys, I am back. Sorry about that slight interruption there. Those of you who have seen Junior, he was outside protecting his territory, shall we say, from a cat that's actually been fostered over the road. Well, we assume that's where it's come from, but it has decided it doesn't like Junior, so he let's say they had a confrontation with each other. Junior has come off best, and he's quite calm now, and the other cat's kind of hiding under a tree at the moment. So there's always a possibility there may be another scream from one of the cats, so we shall see. You're surprised how easily it scrapes off. You're right on both counts actually. Parties is here. It's scraping off so easily because this is sharp. I mean, it's not punchy your skin as soon as look at you sharp. It's not razor blade sharp, but it is sharp, and that's why it scrapes off easily. This other nib I've got here, which I had in the other day, this is somewhat blunt, and yet I can't feel much of a difference. But I was having to use a lot of force, relatively speaking, to get this to actually make a mark. Well, to scrape off and make a white mark, because it just kind of like dented the card but left the black there, and and when it did break through into the white, of course, because it was using a relatively large amount of force, I got quite a wide line, and it was quite a thick white line. It sort of stood out, so some of this roofing here, some of the quite large marks were, you can sort of see this area here, for example, was one where it took quite a relatively speaking, quite a lot of force to do it. So it's kind of a bit of both. And what it sort of does is Scraperboard does seem to blunt the implement. So this as I'm doing it here was not quite marking properly, and yet if I turn it over, I know it's kind of like it bends the end over slightly and gradually wears it away. And I noticed that when I was using a scalpel, for example, whilst I was only using the very tip of the scalpel, after just over one stream of using it, the scalpel was blunt. That the very sharp tip of it was actually blunt, and it wouldn't easily make a mark, which was sort of surprising. I assumed a scalpel would be somewhat more resistant to it than one of these things. Actually, I suppose if I could find my old sharpening stone, which I used to use with a box cutter, I could probably sharpen these. Given that they are a few pounds for 12, that might be a good idea, because I mean visually there's absolutely nothing different about these two, and yet one's blunt and one isn't. So if I could maybe use a sharpening stone on that, then I can afford to lose a little bit of material off it. It's not the shape as such, it's the point that makes it do thin lines. So if I lost some of the shape, I'd be throwing it away anyway. I'll have to try that. This has got It's kind of like a reluctance to make a mark. Well, I'm assuming the just pressed steel parties is here. I don't think that they're not. There's nothing particularly high technology about them or anything like that. You know, well, I don't think. I think they're steel rather than tin. But there's nothing. I suppose I can't easily bend it, so it's probably not tin. But so it probably is steel. But it's kind of like a cheap pen nib without the split on the end almost. So it's just yeah, bit of steel stamped and does it say anything on it? No, STDY11 7SYUK. That probably means something to somebody. There we go. But you can, it doesn't really matter, you can literally use anything. I'd potentially, if it was sharp enough, I guess I could use a cocktail stick, you know, a piece of wood, anything really. Metal obviously holds a sharp edge better. You can use glass fibre, for example. You can get like well, you can pay a lot of money from an art shop, or you can go to like a car DIY place and get like fiberglass propelling pencils that they use for removing small spots of rust, and that works apparently works quite well on this stuff, and is really good for making things like lots of fine hair, and it, because it scrapes really fine lines, but lots of them all in one go. No, it's not aluminium. It feels too heavy for aluminium, given that I'm comparing it against the rings, which are. But it's also stronger. I'm not trying really hard to bend that, but I'm also not. I'm putting a fair bit of pressure on it. And it's not bending, shall we say? Slightly, perhaps, but I could bend it if I really tried, if you get my meaning. But with sort of the aluminium rings, I can bend those with just my fingers. Certainly the ones that are big enough to get hold of, I can twist those with just my fingers. So it's not aluminium. And I mean, I know the scalpel is stainless steel, and so it just blunts that. But if you think porcelain clay, it's stone. So what you're doing is you're dragging a sharp point through a stone, you know, along a stone. So because clay is quite rough, relatively speaking, at the particle level, so that's why it blunts off the tip. It sort of surprised me, but I understand it. Hey, Default Guy, good evening. Welcome back to the studio. Hello, Pat. Patty, I think you missed the A off of that. It completely changes completely changes the meaning of the word. Well, if you're I hadn't noticed you'd gone offline, but now that I have, I can shut that window. Anyway, so yeah, so it's not, definitely isn't aluminium. I don't think aluminium would probably last very. It would work, but I think you'd wear it down quite quickly. probably do that again in a minute and do it later. I was just thinking what would be good here perhaps would be to have like a ruler, but it would, so I could only go up as far as the ruler when I was scratching it, but it I don't want a dead straight edge. It's natural stone, so the dead straight edge would be a little bit odd. So it's going to have to be sort of done with differences in texture and possibly lighting. You know, make this edge will be lighter than that. That's in the shadow. It's in the corner. So these stones down here are going to be quite dark. Oh, I find autocorrect to be quite funny sometimes. Some of the things it comes up with can be really, really amusing. Now this is being reluctant, so I'm just going to turn it around and use the back of it. Something I have noticed in doing the other two is periodically I have to reverse the tool. As I mentioned, it seems like, as it does with carving, the tip just bends over. So if I'm scraping that way, it sort of bends the tip over, and gradually you sort of got a smooth edge you're trying to scrape with, and it doesn't work very well. Whereas if you then turn the tool over, which is kind of hard for me to do, so it's like that, and then you start scraping in that direction again, of course you've got the real sharp edge which gradually bends back until it's bent over and it stops working again. Doesn't actually work as well sideways on. You know, it works well that direction and that direction, but if you do it that way, it doesn't work as well. What was it autocorrect? Oh, autocorrect work had me rolling on the floor today, almost rolling on the floor the day before yesterday, because it won't mean a great deal, but the sentence that it came out with was sending legal non-fiction letters, and what it was meant to say was sending legal notification letters, and just that autocorrect from notification to non-fiction had me rolling on the floor because of the almost the idea that you'd send illegal fiction letters. So yeah, it was non-fiction letters were something special. You had to be there, but yeah. But you can sometimes get some real howlers out of autocorrection. And I mean, it's even funny when the people actually don't notice that it's happened. And because of course, you know, the things like Microsoft Word will change words on you sometimes, and if you don't notice it doing it, it completely changes the sentence that you thought you were typing. And I certainly have been known to start talking back to the word processor along the lines of, no, I really did mean to put that word, you do not need to change it, leave it alone please. But I guess me talking to word processors shouldn't surprise you, since you've heard me talking to pen nibs and bits of wood and all sorts of things. So, in a complete change of subject, anybody been watching the tennis? Not something I particularly watch, but those of you that are maybe interested, I understand. Is it? No. Who's the English bloke this year? The guy who. There you go. This is how much I know about tennis. My wife was telling me about him. He's just won the guy who was in the Olympics. I keep wanting to say Tim Henman, but it's not him, it's somebody that came after him, and I've completely forgotten his name now. But apparently he's through to the quarterfinals, which is supposed to be quite good. He's going to annoy me. I'll have to, well, it'll be after the stream, but I will end up having to ask my wife what his name is. Otherwise it'll bug me all night. Do you ever find that thing that there's something you can't remember, and it keeps coming back to you, and you can't forget the fact that you can't remember it. I usually am quite good at going, no, well, tough, can't remember it, but just certain things. What was it? The other one earlier this week, we were trying to remember what before Facebook there was another one. My wife and I spent something like 2 days trying to remember what that was, because it's odd, because if you try and do an internet search for it, because you don't know what it is you're trying to remember, something that came before Facebook, and you try asking Google that, and of course all it happens is it comes back with Facebook and things about Facebook, and trying to remember what came before Facebook. It's almost like one of those pub quiz questions that everybody thinks, oh, it's, and they can't recall it. Okay, so there, quick quiz. Who remembers what came before Facebook? luckily I just remembered it, so I can actually tell you. Twitter. I don't think Twitter came first, actually, Fear Reaper. It was never the predecessor, if it did, to Facebook. I mean, Twitter actually. If I remember rightly, the original idea of Twitter was SMS messaging for the internet. No, LinkedIn is a professional version of Facebook, if you like. It's meant for business people to connect. Same sort of idea, but more aimed at business. Now, Parties is here actually has it correct. It is indeed MySpace, and of course I don't even know if it's actually still going. Is MySpace? Bebo was another competitor, I think, that came later, but and that one I remember very little about. And I was about to say I've never been on either. I do actually have a Facebook account, but I don't really use it. Facebook is something I can't quite work out how to use. Not the mechanics of using it, but sort of why you'd want to use it, or how you'd use it, in terms of what you'd do with it. Now I've got a doorway here, so I need to make sure I know where the doorway is. I don't want to accidentally start putting stones in the doorway. Twitter I can understand, yeah. MySpace was never a problem. MySpace was kind of the original one, and the idea of MySpace was meant for college students. That's where it originated from, and it kind of lost. It kind of became uncool when adults started using it. It's kind of like the kids didn't want to use it anymore because adults were on there. And they all moved over to Facebook, and MySpace just seemed to drop out of the consciousness. And yet, of course, now Facebook is used by adults and old people. Okay, you had a Dutch version. Okay. I am sure that was. I'm sure that's pronounced a completely different way to the way in which I'd pronounce it in English. For some reason, I kind of got the feeling that that might be pronounced like ooves, but I've no idea. You use Facebook mainly for business, Eddie? Yeah, it's kind of hard to see how businesses use it as well. I mean, a lot of them do, but the ones that I've seen, it's almost like it's a blog. Oh, just English. Okay. Well, I mean, English is kind of hives, and that sort of sounds a bit wrong. Yeah, most of the ones I've seen just kind of use it like a blog, and it just doesn't. It seems the wrong platform. It seems as though there should be something more on Facebook when it's used, well, for business or personal. But okay, beehive. Oh, so I was wrong, but right on the English pronunciation of hives. Don't like bees. No, I don't like bees. I hate wasps, but I don't like bees. Wasps actually terrify me. I think it comes from the time as a young kid I actually got stung on the inside of my lip. So it was inside my mouth. I've kind of been really terrified of them since. It's actually the noise that they make more than anything. It's the buzz, the high pitched buzz, and you get some flies that make almost a similar sound, and they do it to me until I actually physically see it, and then I can calm down a bit. But it's still the sound. I actually hate that sound. No, I didn't see him this morning. I was doing something in work. It's busy. It's kind of been a busy day today. Hornets are worse. Well, I was going to say, luckily, don't really come across them, to be honest. Or maybe I just can't tell the difference. I am guessing they would terrify me just as much, just from the fact that they would have a similar sound. Aren't they more bad-tempered as well? Oh, there's a imagine giant wasps. I'd rather not, thank you very much, Fear Reaper. That's not an image I particularly want. He took a drink. No, I can imagine. I've almost taken a drink of like a bottle of lemonade that actually had a wasp in it. I got my must have been my mother saw it and stopped me, because that would have been no, thank you. Thank you very much for posting the link, Fear Reaper, but I don't actually think I'll take a look at that if you don't really mind. Nah. I'm not, if I did, I wouldn't be running out of the room screaming or anything like that, but it's that's that goes along with your insane asylum in terms of I think, in fact, even games like Minecraft, I really don't like being near the beehives, because you get that buzzing sound, and I really don't like it. Even though, I mean, they're just pixels and it's just sound, but no. And yeah, I don't actually mind the, when you get the bee in the in your inventory, it's that stylized bee that doesn't bother me. I mean, both bees and wasps are kind of really fascinating animals in their own right, but yeah. We've had them quite a few times in the just under the roof line of the house. I think we've had about 2. I can't go near them. We've had to get people in to kill them off. They're not hornets, wasp nests, and even one of them I actually ended up having to knock it down afterwards, and it took a lot to do that. And then there are no wasps there; they'd been long gone, but and died off. But just to knock it down, a long stick and a long way away from it, and it really took a lot of effort and confidence to do it. We even once, actually, there was an overflow pipe from a water tank that we used to have, and a wasp had actually gone up the overflow pipe, which was, it must have been about 6 or 8 feet long, and got to the other end and started to build a nest on the end of it, actually in the old tank. And I didn't actually realise what it was, but it was something, so I just sort of grabbed hold of it in a box, actually, because I needed, I didn't know what it was. I wasn't about to put my hands on it, and took it outside, and the wasp came out and flew away. So but that's as close as I've ever got to one. It's sort of looking pretty at the moment, is this, but I do need to sort of fill in mortar, I think, on it. But I could almost start to think of, potentially start to think about, just a few more random stones about the place. It doesn't really, potentially it doesn't need any more on it, but I'm probably going to am going to put more on. But one of those artistic decisions, you know, is there enough stones on there at the moment to just leave it like that as an art piece rather than completely filling it in. I think if I was going to do that, I'd probably have to put a few around the window here and a few around this window here at the very least. And I certainly will need to make sure I distinguish the edge of the wall here in some way, shape or form. Because at the moment, whilst it's visible here, I'm in on stream, and when I step back I suspect I won't actually be able to see that edge. But that's because, you know, as we were talking about before with pyrography, it's contrast. There is no contrast between them. The only way I can see the difference here is I've done different angles of strokes, so it stands out in person. But you guys, because you basically don't have the resolution to see that, I just see the two edges merged. Kind of makes you wonder why. Well, okay, I know why bees are there to pollinate flowers. I guess they've grown, you know, that's how they've evolved, and you kind of need that to happen. But I don't know, do wasps and hornets provide a function? Don't know. Still got the problem of trying to do random things, like random stone shapes, and ending up still doing the same sorts of shapes. Now this has started to get blunt in this direction. You might see me just there switch it over and start doing it from the other side. Actually, I can feel like a little hook on the end. I can feel it just catching on the glove here. That's sort of, I'll say sort of smooth. That's got like a little catch on it. There we go. Well, at least that's the bottom end done. Okay, Eddie, have a good evening. See you maybe around tomorrow. It's Thursday tomorrow. I should be, well, I'll try and be in chat, but if I'm using my PC, the iPod doesn't always connect to iPad doesn't always connect to chat, but I'll quite likely be lurking. Like I started off today, I've got to then sort of pull up the stream on the Works PC if I actually want to type anything. But have a good evening. And guys, I'm going to also call it a night, I think. Let's give you a view of this. I'm maybe going to get a slightly earlier night tonight as well for myself, because I've been up quite late for the past few nights, and I could do with I'm getting a reasonable amount of sleep. So I'm going to have a drink and you call me out if you like. If I can't speak, I'll effectively ignore you. Although I don't think if I just pull up the video and it doesn't connect to chat, I don't think you can actually see I'm there. But thanks for the advert this afternoon, by the way. Yes, anyway, I was going to say just show you a little bit of what's been done tonight. Again, just filling in stone patterns. So you know the shades are wrong, completely wrong. But what we are doing is just establishing the patterns around which we will then add in the lighter shades where we want them to be, and then ultimately fill some mortar in between them. Yes, possibly. I was watching for a while, as you saw. Actually, yeah, I think you mentioned it. You actually reminded me to go live, because I looked at the clock when you said it and thought, because you mentioned that you thought I'd probably just about gone live, and I looked at the clock and went, "Oops," and started the stream. Yeah, so once I've done more, I am, I think, going to end up filling all the bricks in. But once we've done that, we'll then increase the contrast on some, give them some internal sort of rough shaping and odd glints of light coming off them, just to sort of pick them out individually and then fill mortar in between them to because at the moment it kind of looks like they're doing a Minecraft act and just floating in mid-air. I could get away with it if I consider this like a nighttime scene, for example. Then you know the mortar, whilst in reference terms is almost the same colour as the stone, you know your eye will potentially looking at it, you'll forgive the fact if you think it's a nighttime scene. You'll kind of forgive the fact that you can't see the mortar. It's dark after all. So you'd see light reflecting off some of the stones from the moon, but not necessarily from the mortar. So I mean that is a possibility. I haven't actually decided whether this is nighttime or daytime. It's an interesting medium sometimes is Scraperboard for that. There is really no difference between a daytime scene and a nighttime scene. That's moonlight, especially if it's a bright, you know, like a full moon type moonlight. And the white colouring almost tends to lend itself to that. Now, especially on camera here. I mean, I'm looking at that on camera, and I actually think it looks really good. It kind of looks like a nighttime scene because you've got that white glow almost that's coming from it, whereas when you see it in person it doesn't quite look the same. But it's an interesting thing. I don't think a photograph would capture it either, but we might find out. Thank you, Fear Reaper. That's kind of you to say so. But yes, so more brickwork tomorrow, I'm afraid, and probably the stream after that. But that'll be what, tomorrow's Thursday. So on Friday, I suspect we'll have finished the block work and maybe be adding in some of the textures and highlighting and things on the stones. We might. I doubt it, but we might get onto a little bit of the you know, there's a path in the reference image. It looks like it would be a good thing to put some sort of path in there. May or may not look like that one. We shall see. But I'm kind of keen, if I can this weekend, to put some grass in and maybe do some of that green ink that I've got over the grass and just see what it looks like. It might ruin it. It might make it look better. Don't know. I may do some grass and then decide actually I don't want to put ink on it because it looks so good, but we'll see. Anyway, I am waffling. So what I'm going to do is do what I usually do at the end of the stream, because I don't do it in the middle very often, and that is whilst I take my gloves off, I'm going to say to anybody that's currently watching and who isn't following me, I kind of encourage you to do so, of course. I do appreciate everybody that does follow. It's nice to know you want to come back and take another look. That's assuming Twitch, of course, actually remembers to send out the reminders. But if you would prefer, you can follow me on Twitter. The details will be on the end plate. They're below the window now, but it's at Zaragonart. I tweet when I go live, not when I have my breakfast. By which I mean that I don't just send out random tweets about what I'm doing. It's either a stream live or it may, you know, and maybe an odd message which is associated with some of the art forms that I do. So not random tweets about my life, I'm afraid. If that's what you're after, sorry, I don't do that. If, on the other hand, you just want to catch me tomorrow night, and I do stream every night of the week from about the same sort of time, which is 8 PM in the UK. That's 1900 hours GMT. Or alternatively, if you take a look at your clock now in whatever time zone you're in, subtract approximately 2 hours, and that would be 8 PM. I've been broadcasting just over 2 hours now. So hopefully I'll see you all again on another stream. Thank you all. I've enjoyed having you around, watching and chatting, and I look forward to seeing you again. Bye bye.